Hattie! I'm
Cammy!
so excited to have you here. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna actually need to move my mic over so everybody can hear me. Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled to have you at Social Media Breakfast. So, I was talking to some folks about the silver lining of having to do all of these online. And one of the coolest things about it, in my mind, is that I'm going to change my speaker. Hopefully, you guys can still hear me. Is that you can be here. You're in London and you could never have been like a guest, like live at Social Media Breakfast of Houston, like ever. So I love being able to bring my friends from all over the world that are amazing experts in what they do to Social Media Breakfast. And I'm going to keep doing a few of these, but you're, I think, my first really long distance one. So
Oh, wow.
welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me. It's such an honor to be here. Cammy and I have known each other for, gosh, it seems like quite a while now, actually. And I genuinely love your work ethic and I love your work. So thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. We're so happy to have you. And um, first of all, let's just start by talking about you a little bit. I want to kind of get into the depth of like where you came from and what you did, but also I want to make sure that you guys know you can watch this. I know a lot of you are on Facebook. Some may be watching on YouTube. Some may be watching on LinkedIn, and others of you are on Twitter. We do use the hashtag SMBHOU. So we'd love for you to take pictures and act like this is a live event and like put it out in all the different channels with the SMBHOU hashtag. Even on Facebook, I can find you if you use the SMBHOU hashtag and make it public. Otherwise, yeah. So just so you know, you can use hashtags on Facebook. I know most people don't, but we can find you that way. And then that way we can interact with you because I want this to be live. Also in the comments, you'll see, Hattie, I didn't tell you this before we started, but on the right-hand side, there's a little comments thing. You can see people's comments coming in. You see them? And they're coming and they tell you where they're coming from. So you can see if they're from Facebook. Right now, I think everybody's from Facebook. So I see Christy. Oh my gosh, Christy, you're here. Hi. She's actually not in Houston either. She is in Texas, but not in Houston. Addie. Okay. Hey, how are you doing, Nicholas? Geeka and Christina. Hi, how are you? And Katie's here too. So Katie's going to be right in the comments with you guys as well on Facebook. So if you're, putting some comments in, I can see your comments from wherever you send them. So if you send them from YouTube, I can see them here. We can both see them and we can pull up your questions. So feel free to dump your questions into the comments so that we can pull them up and answer them as we go. Oh, Walter's here too. Tracy's here. Good. Oh my gosh. Everybody's coming in. The eyeballs are coming. So guys, one of the things that you might want to do as well as we get started is to share this post wherever you're at, like immediately. So share it so your friends can jump in too, because Hattie's going to have some like pretty ninja tricks to share with us. And this is like stuff that you'd usually pay a publicist to do. So I like really appreciate Hattie doing this for us today. So, all right, let's jump in. So Hattie, publicity. Now, how did you get into this side of things? We call it public relations here in the US. You call it publicity over in the UK a lot. So can you kind of tell me how you got into this line of work?
So first of all, thanks once again for having me. It's like 2:30 in the afternoon here and it is such a great day. We've had summer and now it's just rainy. So yeah, thank you and good morning to everyone. So I have always been pretty obsessed with the media for as long as I can remember. When I was around 20, which seems like absolutely decades ago because it is, I wrote into a paper just asking for work experience. And they said, no, but you can write for us. And that pretty much started the journey for me in the media. Like I said, I was like 20. I was at college getting my degree. I was working another job, like a part-time job. And just literally just freelancing, just writing stories for the paper on a weekly basis. That pretty much started my obsession with the media. And I wrote probably literally hundreds of stories during that time. There became a point where I knew that having a career in journalism wasn't sustainable and it's not something I really wanted to do because it was changing. So I decided to join the dark side of publicity and I've been there since.
Yeah, that's what my friends called me, the flack. So, I went to college and I was on the student newspaper, and most of my fellow student newspaper people, they went on to go to different news outlets, and I went to become a flack, they called me.
I love it.
So I get it. I love that you kind of went that way too. I feel like I'm in a kindred spirit moment here. So tell me a little bit about what people are maybe starting with. We're going to talk about international media coverage today and kind of how to
Yeah.
get media coverage. But first, I think we need to talk about. I'm sure a lot of people are saying, "What do I have to offer?" Like I would even say that. What do I have to offer to international media? And so, can we start with what you call the angles? You love to talk about the angles. So, can we talk
Yeah.
about what people should be doing to be ready for media coverage?
So the things that you should be doing, that you should be ready, I would say get your website ready, because once you start getting media coverage, you're going to get a lot of traffic to your website, to your social media profiles. So I would even suggest having something that people can download, just so that you can start to collate the email addresses and just basically building your mailing list. That's super key. Have some really good press shots as well. A lot of the time the media will ask you for press shots, and again, if you're not ready, I mean, I had a situation about a few months ago where I had a piece with my kids because I was working from home, and they said, have you got a picture of you and your kids? And I was like, oh no. And like, even as a publicist, I was totally unprepared, so I had to get a few on my phone. They wasn't the best, but get the clearest images possible.
Mhm.
I
So
think those two things.
having a website. So when you say a website, like, I mean, is it just like any website, or do you mean like a page on your website that's devoted to stuff about you? Can you kind of go deeper into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I would say have your business website with your products and services, a very clear about you page as well, just so that once visitors come on, because I think once you start to get the media coverage, as I mentioned, people will start to flow. If you've got like a really clear headline on your site, just explaining what you do and who you are, you're more than likely to convert them into paying customers. And I think ideally, that's really what you want to do. You want to eventually turn the people that read the coverage into paying customers, literally bring them into your funnel somehow.
Yeah, no, that's good. So having stuff set up on the back end before you start flowing traffic is a really good idea. I like
Yeah.
that. And also having a product. I think some people don't really have a clear product, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and usually, just being transparent here, if you're talking with the media, are they really usually like covering your product though? They're not usually, right?
No, not at all. And that's a really good point that you make, because I think one of the biggest mistakes that we do, and I say we because I've done it in the past, is pitching our products and services to the media. Now, the media is driven by advertising revenue. A one-page advert in a national paper can cost roughly $25,000 or so, which is a huge amount. So you need to give them a good reason not to want to charge you advertising revenue. If you're pitching your products, they're thinking advertising revenue. If you're pitching really good angles and stories, they're thinking editorial. And what you really want them to do is to think editorial every single time.
So now we get to angles. See, I knew we'd get to angles because I'm going to tell you guys something about Hattie. She talks about angles all the time, which is basically your hook, or whatever you want to call it. But these angles or these hooks are really, really important to the media. So can you tell me how you go about that? Like, so, and we'll get to international media coverage because this is even good for local coverage. Okay. So let's just be real. So
Absolutely.
how do you start with that? Like how, like if you have a new client, and you sit them down, how do you find all these little angles? Because most people want to talk about their product. I mean, that's
Right.
what I found, right?
Absolutely, everyone, because we've all got something to sell. Your angle is basically your hook. So it might be if you've got an area of expertise. So if I was pitching you, for example, Cami, I would say something along the lines of five ways to optimize your social media presence. It's taken an area of your. I mean, I see angles in my sleep. I'm so obsessive about it. But it's really the key to generating consistent media coverage. The more that you think in terms of stories, the more that you increase your likelihood of getting picked up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so kind of tell me about like the ladder. So like with your clients, Like,
Mhm.
most of them aren't super media stars or anything like that. I mean, some of
No.
them may be. But can you kind of explain like how you get them ready for that kind of coverage? I mean, do you go directly for international coverage or do you warm them up or what do you do?
It really depends on the client. I mean, I personally don't believe in pitching small. I think if you're going to do a media campaign, I think go full in. There's a big misconception that if you've never had media coverage before, that you either just stick to the locals or start small. I don't believe that. I think as long as you've again got a really strong hook, you can go directly to the international publications. You really don't need to wait at all.
And will they be looking though for like how good you are, especially I mean, I'm sure television producers are looking for people that would be good on TV, right? So how do they know that? How do you kind of pitch that?
So I think with TV, I think as long as you've got some sort of media training and you're quite clear. I've taken newbies that have had literally no media coverage and put them on TV, and they've been absolutely amazing. It's really about your body language and the subject matter. Again, your subject matter is everything. Just to touch on that point, just for a little bit longer, actually.
Sure.
Um, in terms of the mediums, be media ready for the TV, radio, and press. It's completely different mediums. So on TV, you have to be a bit more expressive. I think with radio, project your voice because they can't see you and it's not written. So
Mhm.
always think about what medium that you're pitching to and be ready accordingly.
And I mean, I've talked to different media people and they've talked about how they check people out before they put them on their airwaves,
Yeah.
or whatever. So they check you out, right?
They do, and sometimes they'll actually ask you for like a phone interview, so almost just to pre-screen you,
Mhm.
just to ensure that first of all that you're not babbling or that you're not too quiet. Because if you're talking like this, they will say thank you very much, but I don't think you're quite right. So it's really important to come across as being very confident but knowledgeable about your subject matter as well, particularly on the pre-screening call.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you broke it down. So you've got television, you've got the written like articles, and you've
Yeah.
got radio. So I've done a lot of radio, I've done some television, I've done some written too. I've mostly done the writing myself if I've written. But the question is to you, like, where should people start? Like you say, go all in, but what does that mean exactly?
I would say start with the medium that you're most comfortable with. It's generally a lot easier to secure online features, and the turnaround for that is actually a lot quicker. I've pitched features whereby we've secured the feature at, say, 10 o'clock. They've needed it by 11 o'clock. And by 1 o'clock, it's been live. So, and that's for international, online publications. The turnaround is super quick, and you can leverage that a lot easier as well.
Yeah. So that brings me to another question, which is availability. So that's something that I think people don't realize that how quickly a media
Yeah.
outlet, like, when I get something from the radio station, they text me, they're like, I need you in like, like now, can you
Yeah.
get to me before 8 o'clock AM and it's
Mhm.
6:30 or something.
Yeah.
Can you tell me like how that usually comes down for you?
Yeah, I mean, some of my clients probably have me on the dartboard somewhere because a lot of the time I'll message them and I'll say, "Can you turn this around very quickly?" The reality is that news is moving so quickly now
Mhm.
that people want quotes, they want comments very quick. Just because 10 years ago we had like a lot longer, but because things move so quickly online, I think every business owner should be media ready at all times, to be honest.
So makeup every day? Seriously? Okay, I'm kidding.
Oh, no, no. No makeup.
I'm sorry, I just lost my ear. That made me go crazy. I lost my earbud off that. Okay, so question for you then, because you said something a little bit earlier that I thought was interesting. You said I wasn't ready either. They wanted to talk about moms who are working from home with their kids.
Yeah.
Now, that's not what you sell. You don't sell like childcare services, or
No.
you don't help moms, although some of your clients I'm sure are moms. But
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that, because what you just said was interesting, because most people would be thinking, well, I have this business that's XYZ and it's boring. I've
Right.
got this boring product. So how do you
Mhm.
pitch boring people and boring products? I know that's how do you pitch a really boring like business and a boring product?
Mhm. It's not always the obvious sell. So I'm a mother of two. They're upstairs. They're being very good right now and quiet. But the reality is, we've been in lockdown since, well, we're just coming out of it now. But there's a lot of business owners working from home. I am a publicist, but I went in with the softest angle. You don't always have to go for the hard sell. Like, I am a, business expert. Sometimes people just want a behind the scenes kind of look. And that those are nice introduction pieces so people can get to see the person behind the business. And they also mentioned the fact that I'm a publicist, and I also got a link back to Clarity Media, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. And I think that's a really good point. So I've heard that too. You can be more than one thing. So
Yeah.
if you're a business owner right now, there's all kinds of angles around this too. So can we just like take a generic business owner and just really quickly do some ideation around like things that the media might be interested in hearing from a business owner, irregardless of their who they are, like what kind of business. Let's talk about
Oh,
that.
I can think of a long list. So right now in the UK, we've officially gone into a recession. So one could be 5 ways to recession-proof your business, how to sustain a business during the recession, what happens in the event of a global recession, 5 ways to ensure that your cash flow is moving, how to work from home and stay sane because it's not easy working from home, how to work from home and stay healthy. Have I gone too deep, or is that?
No, no, you're a machine. She not guys, is she not a machine? Is she not a machine? I saw Dana just joined us. Hi, Dana. That you're a machine. I mean, but that's exactly the thing. There's so many ways that you guys can spin yourself that has
Yes.
nothing to do with like your product, your even your business type. I mean, it doesn't matter. And then you get a chance to talk about your business type during that interview. And can you tell me a little bit about preparing for an interview so you do get out your message and how do and you talk about people like checking you out for media coverage. I mean, they don't put out a link usually. So how do you get people to why would people look you up during a media event? Like what's the difference between a media appearance where people like flock to find you and the media
Mhm.
event where, it's just like, oh, you're on TV, great, or in the radio.
It's a good question. I think the key is basically always staying ready, but also just being knowledgeable about your subject areas. So constantly be reading, constantly how to stop working when you work from home. Dana, that is a really, really good one. That's something that I struggle with actually.
I'm just going to tell you, Dana comes from a media background. So she
Okay.
was a radio host for years. And so she's got that media vibe going. But yes, that's a good one for sure. How to stop working when you work from home.
It's some,
I might need that article. I'm just saying.
I think I do as well. It's a really good angle, and that's exactly what you need. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it was my last year at some point, I was online talking about just productivity tips. Again, I managed to slip into the fact that I'm a publicist, and it's super important for me to stay productive because ultimately, I'm a content producing machine. I always need to be producing content and thinking of angles. But I mentioned the fact that I break my day down into chunks, like half an hour chunks usually. That was really good media coverage. I think that one got into Forbes actually. So
Oh yeah, that's great. Oh, and there on Adriana says how to work from home and stay sane.
brilliant one. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all in that boat at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say, like my evening walks with my husband, we walk about 3 miles like every night right after dinner, and it's been I don't know. I think that's really why I'm still sane. I think that's why I wake up every day with a new fresh understanding, right? So, yeah.
Walking is brilliant.
Yeah, she found one for Microsoft. It's okay to take a break. Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's funny because I also heard somebody talking the other day, and it was like not a media thing, but I think it would be a good media angle. Somebody was talking about how they take a fake commute every morning. They go out and they walk, and they
Yeah.
walk back, and that's their fake commute. I thought that was cute because it like breaks up your day. So like how do you, I don't know, there's so many angles. You're so right. There's just so
There
many.
is. And even just getting dressed for the day, because when we work from home, it's so easy to go from, from to work in our pajamas.
Mhm.
Personally, when I'm starting work for the day, in order to get into the mentality, it's a really good angle to pitch, getting dressed for work. Not necessarily in heels, but again, it's kind of a bit oddball, but the media loves things like that. They like things that are slightly different, but that relate to current world events.
So, I'm going to back up just a little bit. We did this on Instagram. We did a little quick live on Instagram beforehand, but we were talking about your clients and the kinds of media coverage you are getting for them. So, can you kind of talk about the different outlets and stuff that you're working with right now? And so,
Mhm.
you generally work with subject matter experts, right? That's kind of your sweet spot, if you will. You'll take a subject matter expert and then you'll get their stuff all in all kinds of media. So can you kind of explain where you go? Like, just take me through like getting a new client and what you do with them
So
and
when
what
I
they
take on a when I take on a new client, we always do a PR questionnaire just so that I get a feel of the types of outlets that they'd like to be in, and we start to formulate angles from there. Doctors and psychologists are constantly in demand. I'm actually working with a psychologist at the moment. I think she's been actually pretty surprised with the media coverage that we've got, just because it's so topical. You need psychologists to talk about children in psychology, social media in psychology. And we've had some amazing results. So we take on the client, we dissect some of the angles, and then we look at potential outlets as well. I wouldn't pitch my psychologist to the same outlets as I would necessarily to my business
Mhm.
consultancy clients. Totally different audiences. There is a slight crossover, but generally, my psychologist is more sort of lifestyle publications, business consultant, more business type press.
Right. And we were talking about earlier, like you have like Forbes and like Marie Claire and like
Yeah.
what else did you say? There was a bunch of them you kind of mentioned.
Oh, Business Insider, Cosmopolitan. In fact, on Wednesday, we got our 30-second piece in Forbes, woohoo, which was really, really, really cool. But yeah, we've done Cosmopolitan, we've done Vogue Business this week, actually. Well,
Cool.
this month, which was for a new client. She was very, very happy. Our client that we pitched for Vogue Business, she had never been featured in the media. So she came to us without having had any media experience. And Vogue Business were interested in her story. They really were. They were interested in what she had to say. And Cami, it goes back to what you were saying earlier about whether you have to be a newbie or whether you, as a newbie, whether you can get coverage. Absolutely.
Yeah, you definitely can. And I think it really does have to do with those angles and pitching. So
Yeah.
let's get to pitching because I think this is like kind of your superpower, I think.
Thank
So
you.
I'd like to go through sort of your process for how you pitch and like what you're thinking. And I do want to talk about our ninja trick because let's start because this is social media breakfast. So I'd like to talk about social media for a minute. Can you say what like how you use social media to find journalists and things? So
Absolutely. So there's a few ways that I use. If you go onto Twitter, there's a
oh,
hashtag
here.
which is journal request. So and if you use that hashtag, you will literally find a lot of journalists that are actually looking for case studies and for comments. It works particularly in the UK, but they're looking for international commentary as well.
And
And that was
and give me the hashtag again. What is it?
it's journal request. So
Spell it.
J JOURNO and then request, all one word.
So Katie, put that in the chat, and I'll do it here where it can
Yep,
happen. Okay.
of course, I'll do that right now. That was actually how we found the Vogue business opportunity for my client. So
Wow. Okay. Cool. So it's kind of like is that a little bit like the
oh, I
ones
spelled
where
it
like
wrong.
help a reporter out? Is that
It's
also?
yeah. I actually spelled it wrong, Cami. So let me
Oh, Christy did it. Thank you, Christy, for in Facebook she did, but
spell.
Journo request JOURONO.
There we go.
Okay.
Thanks, Christy. Yeah. So that was how we found the Vogue business opportunity. The fact that we were able to respond to it very quickly really made a huge difference. The quicker that you can respond to Haros and journal requests, the more likely they are to pick you up as an expert.
And Haro, just in case you guys don't know what that is help a journalist out. Um, how do you manage those? Because I mean, I think that one is free still, right?
Yeah, it is. I say generally just check it 3 times a day because it's easy to get sucked in to just checking it constantly and then you never get any work done. But generally, I tend to check it first thing in the morning around 10 o'clock, around midday, and then around 3 p.m. or so that just so that you can cover all bases.
Cool. So that's number one. So that's how you find some coverage ideas or journals that are looking specifically for certain things. So how do you then go from there? So you say you have that. Say you didn't find any though. Let's say because you don't always find something in
No.
journal request. So what's the next step? Give me some more social media tips. I want those first.
So the next thing would be to find relevant journalists. So to look at your favorite publications in your field. So it might be Inc., for example, and look for a few journalists on there. Once you start to follow them on Twitter, the algorithm on Twitter will naturally start to throw up relevant journalists. And that's something that I used to follow quite a few journalists that I wouldn't have even thought of. Once you follow a few, Twitter basically does the rest, which is really cool. Thank God for algorithms.
Yeah. And then do you put them in a list or anything like that to follow them, or do you just
I personally don't. I mean, my Twitter feed mainly consists of both my clients and journalists and a few others like you, and then that's really it. So, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so if you do have like a bigger Twitter following or Twitter lit, you can put them into a list, which is what I do because I have obviously a much bigger thing to deal with. So I'll put them in a list, and you can click on that list and just see what they're talking about that time. And do you like talk with them, or do you form relationships, or how do you do that?
Very good question. So I'm not sure if anybody watches Love Island or if you guys have that over there, but
Is it?
Love Island, it was basically a reality TV show. So last year at one point, I was every evening around 9 p.m. I
Yeah.
would jump on Twitter because a lot of the journalists will be on there. It's after work hours. Everybody was in relaxation mode and everybody was just commenting on Love Island. So, whatever your Love Island is, choose that. And it was just light banter. So I would be like, oh my gosh, have you seen what that person is doing? Just very light banter. The next time that I went to pitch to that journalist, they'd be like, oh, hi, Addie, how you doing? Because at the moment, no one is really doing dinner parties. We haven't done like journalist breakfasts and dinner parties for a long time. Going onto Twitter and making general banter during shows like this is the equivalent of being at a dinner party and networking with journalists.
Yeah, it's good. And I've seen it too, like in the mornings, like when journalists are going to work and stuff like that, you can like sometimes they'll say, oh, they'll say something, and if you actually respond with them. So
Yeah.
having a list of journalists that you're really trying to get to know is really, I think, key. I love that tip. It's a really good one.
And even things like Lego. I mean, sorry to interrupt you. Like, this morning, one of my journalist contacts was tweeting about Lego. My son is obsessed with Lego. I was like, oh, that's a cool Lego ship. Light banter. They remember you just from basic contact. It doesn't always have to be feature me. It's just about building relationships. And then when you do go to pitch, they'll definitely remember you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good. So that's cool. And then you also said something to me once about, and I thought this was kind of a ninja trick, about reporters that have lots of social media contact and those that don't. Like, so can you kind of tell me, do you remember that tip?
Yes, I do actually. So whenever you're looking to pitch to a particular media outlet, when you go on Twitter, I usually pitch to the journalist that has got the least followers because they're more than likely to pick up your pitch. So if I was pitching to someone at Business Insider, for example, and they had 250,000 followers, I wouldn't pitch to them because I know that my pitch would probably get lost amongst thousands of other pitches. Whereas if they've got, say, 2,000, they're more than likely to pick it up.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that. And so, and when you say pitch, you're not pitching them on social media, or are you?
No, so what I normally do is I'll normally either DM them and say, I have a really interesting story for you. Can I pitch to you here, or would you prefer pitch to be pitched to by email. I think it's just common courtesy. Some actually don't like to be DM'd pitches. And I've DM'd pitches before and they've sort of said, I prefer to be pitched by email. Now I just tend to ask.
Yeah, that's good. And I was going to put up Rebecca because we have to let you know that Rebecca is like this Lego fanatic. So the fact that
Oh,
you talked
wow.
about Legos was amazing because she actually has little Legos made of her and her partner that are like, anyway.
Oh, wow. We
Yeah,
should
we're
connect,
talking.
Rebecca. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, you need to know this journalist. You'll have to ask Hattie who that is privately. Behind the scenes. But yeah, no, I love that. And so you are pitching on via email, but but you're looking at their social media as a
Yeah.
means to understand like how approachable they might be.
Exactly. And, I'm in a few publicity groups, and we had a scenario this week actually where a publicist was basically saying that a journalist, stroke blogger, had their number on their Instagram account. And what they done was initially they DM'd them a pitch, and then half an hour later they called them. And understandably, the blogger was, I mean, they were super upset because having their number on their Instagram or any social media platforms is not an invite to pitch to them that way. You really do need to ask because that totally damaged the relationship. They didn't manage to get their client that feature just because they didn't quite know how to pitch to that particular.
Yeah. And I mean, I would be like also a little bit, leery about putting my phone number on there. So the journals probably shouldn't have done that. But on
So
the other hand, I think that's like how you pitch the good ways and the bad ways. So can you kind of throw a few of those out? Let's talk about what a good pitch looks like. How about that?
So a good pitch, I mean, a lot of people tend to use press releases, and I don't mind them. What I tend to find is that shorter, concise pitches tend to work well. So literally no more than 2 paragraphs, the feature idea, and then a bit about you at the end, and then that's it. That tends to work really well because on a good day, any journalist can get between 10 and 20 pitches. On a bad day for them, that could be like hundreds. So you really want to make yours stand out. I would also say use the feature idea in the subject heading. So don't use, feature idea just, if it's 5 tips on how to optimize your social media, use that as a subject heading. Journalists loves to feel special. So don't email them as well as 5 others, or just do like a general blanket email. That's a definite no. That will definitely get your pitch binned.
Yeah. That means the trash for those of us that are in America.
I'm sorry.
That's a binned pitch. Just saying.
Bin the pitch.
In case
I'm
you
so
want to know.
British.
No, it's okay. You're good. You're good. I'm just, I'm loving your accent. Everybody give Hattie a couple of like really cool emojis for me. Say like clap emojis or something. We love this. We love this so much. So one of the things I like about what you just said is a little bit about you. So a few paragraphs, that's about the actual angle, right? So that's very much about that. And in those paragraphs, like they're short, right? So what are you trying to get across in there?
Literally, all you're trying to convey is the feature idea and a few lines about that, and give them an idea of your expertise. That's it. That's all they need to know.
Yeah.
They need to know the feature and how credible you are to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, yeah. I like that very much. And also, here's the thing that we found too with clients, that they want to put their whole bio, their whole story.
Yeah.
When you say that little bit about you, can you kind of go into a little bit more detail about the little bit about you part?
Yeah, sure. So on mine, what I tend to write is, hi, my name is Hattie Falivi. I am a PR expert with over 20 years experience in the media. Makes me sound so old. And then I say, I've secured over £2 million worth of media coverage, and I've helped my clients to win some awards. That's it. And that's really your mini bio as well. It's your mini bio that you need in the pitch. Yeah, exactly, Katie. Yeah, I love that. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Well, we're not gonna say the last word.
Yeah. But KISS always works. Yeah,
KISS works. I love it. And so something Christina said here, which is kind of nearby, but not quite, is about going viral. And this has been happening a lot where people do Twitter story threads and
Mhm.
then those can go viral. Like media might pick them up. And I have seen people in those kinds of threads reaching out to those people and saying, hey, I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you. That can happen. Um, that's a depends though. See what Hattie's talking about is like purposefully going out and getting that media coverage, which I think it's powerful. And I think, I was listening to, I'm in another media group like you are. I'm in a lot of little media groups, and I was in one. And yesterday there was a woman who was talking about this contact that she had, that was a friend of hers that could get her on national media, and there was a really good hook for it, everything, but she was scared to ask because she didn't want to come off as sounding, I don't know. She was scared. I think most people are afraid to pitch. So how do you get over that fear, and and you send it to them and they don't like necessarily respond to you?
Sure.
How do you get over all that?
So I would say if they don't respond within sort of 3 to 4 days, I normally send the same pitch and just say, I'm just checking to see whether you've received the email below, because sometimes they genuinely do miss it. And it's, I often land it on the second pitch because you'd be amazed at how many times, they might have been out of the office that day or just caught up. Once you send it the second time, I would say we tend to get picked up like literally 70% of the time on the second email, at least.
So like if you didn't send it twice, but
Yeah.
you wait about a week.
Yeah, definitely. I think that if you send it too soon, then you run the risk of just seeming too eager. And it seems like you're badgering them as well. I mean, as I mentioned before, that lady literally waited half an hour in between pitching the blogger and then phoning them, and it was just like, whoa, they haven't had a chance to pick it up yet. So a week is definitely good.
Yeah, and people don't get back to you really super fast. And sometimes they don't
No,
see it, and sometimes they look at it and say, "Well, maybe," and then they forget about it. And
exactly.
yeah. So the second pitch, you say, "Have you seen this?" Or do you say, "I sent this to you. Are you interested?" Like what is your wording usually?
So my wording usually is, hi, Sarah, I'm just checking to see whether you've received the email below. Please let me know if you're interested in the story. Thanks and kind regards. And then I just keep it very brief. It's just a nice nudge. If they don't respond at that point, I would say just leave it. And the reality is, not all of your pictures are going to get picked up. I would say don't take it personally. They reject it. Well, they're not rejecting it. It's just that the story is not relevant, but keep going and don't pitch to the same journalist. Like once, if they haven't responded, leave it at least about a good month or 6 weeks before you send them another pitch.
Well, that's a good one. So, but you will send him another pitch, but just a
Absolutely.
different angles.
Different angles, definitely. And I would say test your angles, because generally, whenever we start a campaign, I will start with about three angles. I'll pitch those to at least 5 outlets. If they're not working, I'll literally tweak the pitch and then resend. A lot of it is about testing and refining, and it might just be a minor tweak that helps to get it.
Yeah, I'm actually writing that down because that's one of the things that you and I have done some work together. So
Yeah,
with a client, and one of the things that I remember you saying is we're going to test these angles. So you'll take these angles and then you'll test them, which I think is interesting because I don't think most people think of that like that. They're like, oh, all of my eggs are in this basket of this one journalist that I want to get, right?
yeah.
So how many journalists do you start out with? Like usually, like how many outlets do you like to start with?
Normally, in order to test the pitch, I would say between 5 and 10. That's all you need.
Okay.
And just on that point, actually, again, this is a discussion that we've had before, Cami, is
Mhm.
that it's okay to send the same pitch to a number of journalists at the same time.
Mhm.
And just literally just tweaking the angle slightly big. And if all 10 of them do say yes, give them a slightly modified version.
Yeah, so you can tweak that angle because I mean, what
Yeah.
do we do? We just if you heard us earlier, Hattie just went and said like we were talking about just a business angle, like an overall business angle, and she had like I don't know, you just spewed out about 7 or 8 different ideas, right?
Yeah.
So you do need to sit down and think through like all of the different ideas, both things that are related to your industry and things that are just like tangential to
Yeah.
it. And then take those. And then that we talked at the very beginning about how you find those journalists, you read the publications, you find journalists. So you can go on, I mean, actually, this is sort of a hack I use. You can go to news.google.com and just type in like your topic and see who's writing about it and which outlets. And you can actually then just write down those journalists' names and then follow those journalists, like find them on social media, find them other places. So if you had like a list of 20 of those and followed them for about a month, you'd get a pretty good idea of what they wrote about, right? So they may have just done a one-off on, say, I'm a social media person, like, so they may have just done a one-off on like social media trends, or they may be the one that's covering social media trends for their outlet. And then if they are, then I probably should be pitching them, right? I'm just thinking out loud, how you might want to think about this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and the good thing is that, media outlets, they're constantly looking for coverage and they're constantly looking for new experts as well. Personally, I think as business owners, I think that we should all be putting ourselves out there, probably slightly biased, I'm a publicist, but there you go.
Well, and not everybody will. That's the funny part, So out of all of you listening out here, some of you won't do this, guaranteed. But there may be a few of you that say, "Oh, yeah, I can probably do this," and you don't need a Hattie to do it, although it helps. But you don't need that. You just need to be like, make your list of 20, make your list of angles, go out and pitch them, test the ideas, pitch the first 5, then pitch the second 5, and then keep going around and then start over again at the top. And one of the things that's interesting, if you pitch a journalist, like say once a month or something for a whole year, they're going to get to know like kind of who you are. They may not pick you up, but what's been your experience with stuff like that, them getting to know you?
The great thing about them getting to know you is that once you've been featured a few times, they actually start to come to you. It's happened with one of our clients who's a branding expert. We've pitched her to Business Insider. Based on that one pitch, she commented once, I think it was on the feature on the Royals. They've since come back at least 3 or 4 times and said, I'm writing a feature about the Royals. Can your client so-and-so comment? And now she's literally become a regular commentator based on that one pitch. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that a lot of news is recycled. So once you're in one publication, sometimes they'll take your quote and another publication will repurpose it. So from one feature, you may end up actually getting 5 features as a result.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, that extra thing. Christina has a really good question. Right now, it's been tough getting reporters interested in any topic that's not COVID related. What's your thoughts on that?
That's an interesting one. I think that a lot of journalists are getting tired of writing about COVID, to be honest. So they're looking at upbeat stories. They're looking at people that, business owners that are thriving in the season, because although bad news can sell sometimes, they're trying not to drain people too much. That's just been my experience. So there is quite a bit about COVID, but at the same time, they're trying to put a positive spin on things too.
Right. And I think coping and like you can kind of move away from like to a softer topic around it.
Yeah.
I guess it's still COVID related in a sense, but you don't say the word COVID necessarily. It's true. I mean, you're right, Christina, but it's like it takes a little bit of like sitting. I guess I'd have to know more about what you're trying to pitch. Maybe if you want to let us know, we can come up with some thoughts as a group here. So this is a great, by the way, brain trust, Hattie. Most of the people listening are communications professionals, because that's kind of what I attract, because I am. So it's good. So a lot of these actually do pitching. So Rebecca says, I've commented on their stuff when I started following journalists. And then when I pitch them, I include their own tweets that I commented on and went into more detail, and I emailed them. That's interesting.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a great
Definitely.
tip.
Very great tip.
And it reminds them, oh yeah, we talked. Although you got to be careful not being too heavy handed, right? So you don't want to be like, I don't know. Rebecca wouldn't do that. She's much more friendly and whatever, but there's some people that really kind of push in on things and say, this is very important to me. I would say one of the things about pitches is that you want to remove the word I from like as much as possible, right? The word, so write your stuff and then go back through, and anytime you say the word I, take it out and replace it. I think that would help.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Let's see. Yes. Yes. So this is good, Walter. This is really good. So Walter, as you know, Kami, on my show, I ask about the environment instead of COVID-19. Right, you do. And it opens up to a variety of topics instead of that. So Walter does swag, I like to call it swag stuff. Like, so he helps you like with the stickers and the mugs and all those things that you want to like market your business. So how would somebody like Walter pitch the media?
So I would say competitions. Competitions are a great way to get coverage, just in terms of giveaways. And I think if you have a product-based business, they'll be very open to that.
What do you mean by competitions? Talk about that.
So giveaways, basically, the media love to give away products. So if you
I
have
didn't know
products,
that. Really? That's
oh,
interesting.
yeah, absolutely. It's something I've used with fashion designer clients. We've literally given away outfits, and it's a really good way to build your mailing list as well, because a lot of the time they'll have a data capture option. So you can basically ask for the data, or people can opt in. And we've helped people to get like 2,000 people on their mailing list by using the data capture
So tell
option.
me, like, what I wouldn't have thought that any media outlet would do that. So kind of explain to me where you did that. Can you give me some
Yeah, of course. So with
case study?
Cosmopolitan, yes, case study. So we were working on a runway show, and we had quite a few designers that we were working with, and they were really keen. They were fairly new designers. They were really keen to get their outfits into the media. So we literally gave away one of their outfits, but we gave everybody that entered the competition an option to receive more information. They had to tick a box, and quite a few of them did. But it just meant that we were able to collect their email addresses, and that the client was then able to go on to market to them after. It's actually a really good way to build your mailing list fast. And because you're asking for permission, it ticks all of the boxes as well.
So how did you pitch something like that? Because it seems like something they would make you pay advertising dollars for.
Not necessarily. So the competitions are usually free because you have to give away something of value. Sometimes there's a charge for data capture, sometimes there's not. It really depends on the media outlet. Generally, in terms of cost, it's not normally more than sort of $500. But considering that you can get 2,000, contacts, it's actually very cost effective.
That's cheap. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that from Facebook advertising point of view, you can get people on your list, around a couple of, I mean, it depends on your industry, but anywhere between $2 and $5, you can kind of get people on your list right now if you're targeting right and you're doing the right thing. So that's cheap. It's a good price. Interesting. That's interesting. I never would have thought of that. I would have think they'd say like, no, like buy an ad.
Oh gosh, it's amazing how many publications actually do that. To be honest, there's a lot of them that offer that. So yeah.
So how do you figure that? Yeah, I guess you just go read them and see, are they offering content or giveaways, right?
Absolutely. And even if they're not, you can always ask. Sometimes they're open to doing things that are not necessarily on their pages. So look out for those that have. If they haven't, then just approach the editor and say, would you be open to a competition?
That's really interesting. A sweepstakes, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about international media coverage. We have been talking about it a little bit because it's kind of the same, I have to be honest, but in terms of getting international media coverage, any advice on pitching publications in non-English speaking countries? Very interesting. And collecting non-English coverage.
Very interesting question. So a lot of major publications actually have a non-English speaking section, or they'll have non-English speaking versions anyway. So I would say pitch to the English speaking version. It will more than likely get translated into French or into Italian, and we've had that with Business Insider, where it's got translated into Business Insider, Italy, I think Brazil actually as well. So a lot of the major publications would generally do that by default anyway.
So I think she's also asking, how do you collect like afterwards? So, like you have to have clips and stuff. Like, how would you collect that media coverage afterwards? And also going back to that, so you would research if you're trying to get international, you might research publications that had both English and non-English. But what if they like you wanted to do Hispanic marketing, like in Guatemala or something? How would you go about that?
Good question. So media lists, you can actually buy media lists online on places like peopleperhour.com.
What is it called? People per hour?
Yeah, let me just drop that to you now.
Yeah, that'd be good. These are good resources.
Yeah. So if you go onto somewhere like People Per Hour, there's usually journalists that have already got access to media databases, and some of them will put together a list for you just for a small fee. And that's a really good way to do research.
Awesome. So, like, is that like sort of like an Upwork or something? I mean, what is?
Very similar, yeah. So, I mean, I've checked Upwork. They don't tend to have as many, but People Per Hour, a few on Fiverr as well. So you guys have Fiverr, right?
Yes, we do. I
Yeah.
just hadn't heard of People Per Hour. That's cool though.
Yeah,
I
People
will
Per
look
Hour
it
is a
up.
really cool one. Yeah, I've actually got a few media lists on there before, and if you tell them what you're looking for in terms of writers in Thailand, etc., they'll be able to
Mhm.
draw up a list for you.
That's actually cool. Okay, so People Per Hour. I'm actually going to dump that in here as well. Oh, it's in here. You got it. Got it. Okay. Cool. So People Per Hour, Fiverr, and then you get on there and you just search for what? What would you search for to find the right people to do this?
So I would normally search for publicists themselves and just say, can you put together a list for me of journalists based in Thailand or France or Italy,
Mhm.
etc.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool, cool, cool. All right. And then getting those clips afterwards. Like, is there a good service that does that, or how do you get those clips?
So Google Alerts is actually a really good way to track coverage. It's something that I use as a tool to track my clients' coverage. Whenever I take on the client, I
Mhm.
always do a new alert for every single client. So yeah, it's actually a good tracking tool.
Yeah, especially if it's an online. But if it's in like a paper, you'd have to probably get somebody over there to get it for you and clip it, right?
Yeah, or just get an international cutting service as well. They do have a few of those as well,
Okay.
whereby they'll literally do a scan of the international papers for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also, I would say that once you secure the coverage, literally just ask them for the release date too. Then you can, make a record and get somebody to get it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, And then, would you suggest like working with somebody like if you're really going deep into a market? I mean, I would suggest if you're going deep into a market and it's in a different language, like a totally different language from your own, I would also suggest at least hiring somebody that can help you with that. Either to put together like, to edit it or look at it or whatever. And you can do
Yeah.
that probably on People Per Hour too, or whatever. You could get somebody that could just help you with the language part.
Definitely, because there's also cultural nuances to think about as well. So the way that you would pitch someone based in France would be completely different to how you would pitch someone in the US. You kind of really want to reduce the risk of any offense. So just be aware of any cultural nuances in the country.
So have you been able to have you done some of that as well, or have you only been pretty much English speaking press?
Mainly English speaking press. I have had things translated into other languages, but it's mainly English speaking press.
Right, but international in its coverage, like it's the
Yeah,
type, right? So you work with
absolutely.
people in America and in other places to get English speaking press. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. And even my clients, I've got a few clients based in Africa, but a lot of the publications over there are English speaking. So,
Yeah, a lot of them you can talk to in English anyway, even if they
yeah,
publish it on something else. Yeah,
absolutely.
please don't use Google Translate. Yeah, Christina, I'm like so with you on that because
Yeah.
that is so backwards. I mean, my husband's Belgian, and so he speaks Flemish, and so once in a while his sisters send over. I get on email threads where everybody's talking like in their dialect, which is not
Mm.
even really even Flemish. So they're talking in dialect, and I one day I just thought it would be fun, and I hit English. I hit Google Translate. It was hilarious. I actually should take a no, I can't because it's their personal conversation, but take a screenshot of it because it's so bad. It's so funny. Anyway, it's pretty bad. But it did give me the gist. It does give you the gist, but it was not right. Cool. Any other questions you guys have? Oh my gosh, we've like eaten up an entire hour just like that. Oh, John. John has a question. John says, "Hi, Hattie. I can't find publications that deal with people who want to tell their story, but not by writing a book about it. So by recording a video or an audio, which I would help them with. Any tips?"
Can you elaborate on the question a little bit, please?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is that they want to tell their story. They don't want to write a book.
Okay. So if it's their personal story, there needs to be, I would say, link it to a news angle. link it to something current. So, this world, there's been a lot of it's been a very sensitive year in the media, but that means that there's definitely been a need for more personal stories and more personal case studies and whatnot. So I would say link it into a current news angle and then tell it from there.
Yeah, and it would, again, I think, John, it's not about your service called like video, getting people's stories out on video, right? So what he does is he gets on a video and he draws
Okay.
their story out of them instead of them
Right.
writing a book, which is cool. But maybe you can talk about like an angle I can think of right away is how do well, I mean, I don't know if this is an angle, but let me see if this gets you going, Hattie. How do you get people's stories out of them? How do you get them to talk to you? How do you get people to trust you?
The trust angle is actually a really good one, and I think that would appeal to a lot of publications.
Yeah, like, how can you get anybody to trust you? Because I mean, obviously, John, they're gonna have to trust you to tell you their story. So you must have some secret ninja ways of like getting people to trust you. And so, but you need to make it bigger. Like it's not about people telling you their story. So it has to be like applicable to anybody, right? So like if you're talking to people, like those people that sit down and talk with people, and people just spill their guts to them. They have this way about them. So maybe you have some tips and tricks for like a boss or anybody that's out in the public to learn how to get people to talk to them and tell them stuff. And then, yes, of course, the reason you know that is because you do this all the time, because you help people do it for their personal story, but you're teaching like managers and other people how to do that too. I know you're not doing that day to day, but you can through the media, and the media would love that, because that's one of the big business, I think, things that is always being talked about is how do you, as a boss, like get people to relate to you more and not be so, ivory tower, or how do you get people to open up to you whenever you're not in an office environment anymore, like you're at home and you're
Exactly.
trying to, yeah. So I don't know, Hattie might come up with better like actual titles, but these are angles.
They are angles, and I think they're very strong angles, but also, effective video tips. So, communicating effectively on video, because it's not the most obvious angle, but it's still a really good hook for you, I think.
Yeah. Oh, video. Yeah, definitely. Like, how do you, yeah, like using video, like, how do you use video at a distance? How do you do video? That's one of the, yeah, I like that a lot, Hattie, because some people are like, how do you create videos whenever you're not like able to be in person with somebody?
Exactly. Whenever you could be in a relaxed environment, as soon as the video comes on, people automatically do that. They automatically freeze up, but it's just like, how do you
Yeah.
reduce that so that they don't do that at all?
Yeah, no. So any kind of little tips on and tricks on how you do your craft? I mean, I know you're not really teaching people how to do what you do. That's really not what that is, but how can you relate it to the biggest number of people possible that are the readers of that or the watchers of that specific media, right? So for mainstream media, like if you're going to a television show, that has to be for everyone, right? Like how do you get your spouse to open up to you or anybody to open up to you?
Mhm.
For like a business press, it's like, how do you get your employees to open up to you or whatever, right?
Exactly. Camille,
On video.
you're on fire. That is, yeah, perfect. Exactly.
I can't help it.
As
I'm
Kirsty said, you
I'm
are
in your
indeed
presence, Hattie. When I'm around you, I'm like, oh yeah, we can do this. So yeah, I just feel like you've got to remember that it's got to be like relatable, if you want to use that word. My kids like that word, relatable,
Yeah,
to as many people as possible that read that particular publication, because they're looking for that. They're not looking to promote you. They don't care about you. I hate to say.
and that's
um,
something that I always say. Like generally, the media are looking for really good stories. They're less concerned about us as people. They want really good stories. If you can constantly give them good content, they will constantly feature you, and they will constantly run to you as well for your expertise too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the more you can do that, the more. So, I mean, I often have there's a reporter here in town on a radio station that is constantly calling me, and he sends me this latest, an article that was run somewhere else, and says, "Oh, here's something that's going on with TikTok, or here's something that's going on with this or that." And he says, "Can you read this and give me your thoughts on it?" Okay, so I read the article. I'm like, oh yes, I've got some thoughts on this, and then I actually sit down and I actually did this the other day. Actually, I think they're sitting here. Here's a couple of them. Um, I was about to talk to him, and then I just wrote algorithms here. You might even see this. Algorithms favor strong reactions, good or bad. Okay, so he was asking how the algorithm was helping to feed cancel culture. And so I'm like, well, you know what? Algorithms are looking for reactions. And if they see reactions, good or bad, they're going to bring those to the surface and they're going to serve them to people. So like, for example, if you react strongly against negative things in your social media, then the algorithm is going to feed you more negative things that you're going to respond to strongly. It's just the way the algorithm works, right? So he was asking if the algorithm was partially responsible for cancel culture. So I had 5 points. That was just one of them that was kind of floating around here on the floor. And I put them right in front of me. And I was like, it was a radio interview, so I didn't have to look at the camera, right? So I was able to like kind of make sure that I hit each of my points. But I didn't talk about my business. I didn't talk about any of that stuff, but they just said that I was this expert from Smart Social Secrets, and they did use my Smart Social Secrets tag, which was something I was promoting at the time. So I don't know. I mean, I think it had nothing to do with it was tangential because it was something in social media, but it wasn't like about my business.
And that's great because it just means that you have access to just a wide range of exposure, basically. If you constantly make it about what you do, you're almost limited in what you can talk about. If you can comment on anything business wise and still link it back to your business, you've definitely got more options to get coverage.
I was going to say they want clicks. Exactly, Christy. They
Yes.
want clicks, and they also, I mean, let's just be real. I mean, that's kind of the jaded look at it, and it's true, but they also want to serve their readership. They want their readership to be served. And you were talking about the algorithm problem. They want clicks. You're right. That's Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg wants clicks. Okay, he's going to like now ban this video because I said that. Anyway, doesn't matter. But the point is that, we are living in a world where it's really hard to get attention. And the only way to get attention is to be super relevant.
Totally. Yeah.
And the journalists have heard every single story out there. They've heard every single pitch. They've heard it all. And so for you to actually get them like interested in you, you've got to like give a different, fresh way of thinking. And for, this journalist I was telling you about, he calls me because he can call me at 6:30 in the morning and I answer the phone.
And that's key because once they know that they can rely on you and that you can give them what you want quickly, they'll constantly come back to you. Sometimes it's just about building a relationship with those few journalists and maintaining those, and you'll be in the media constantly.
Now, one more thing I want to say before we go, because we're running out of time, or we're actually out, but what do you do with the coverage after it runs? Because I think a lot of people look for the media coverage as the end all be all. And then it happens and they're like, nothing really happened here. So, tell me about that. Like, how do you use media coverage once it's been secured?
So we normally use it to go on to get speaking engagement. So we literally try and monetize it and say our client has been featured in these publications because it carries once they can see a sustained media campaign, they'll know that you're more than likely to get coverage for them and they're happy to pay. It's just easier to go onto stages to speak about your expertise and whatnot. It's actually also easier to secure clients because I think once you've got a strong digital footprint, a client or potential client will look you up. They see that you've been featured. It's another form of social proof, basically, similar to your testimonials. Being featured in the media is just social proof.
You can also actually Chris Winfield. I don't know if you know who Chris is, but he's a pretty well-known publicist out of New York City. And I was in his Be on TV challenge, which is something he does occasionally. But one of the things he said, which I thought was really good to me, was take that media coverage and tell a story around it and send it to your email list or put it on your social media or whatever, but not like, oh, look how great it was, I was on media, but more like, here's the things that, that like this thing that I was telling you about, this algorithm thing. That's the funny thing about the radio station. They don't really have like I can't send it out like as a media coverage piece because they don't have it on their website like that. They don't, this is not the way they do it. And so how do I like let people know that happened? And he says, well, you can actually take those 5 points you said and then write an email around them and then talk about like the other things you didn't say in the interview. Like, here's the things I said, but here's the things I left out that I'm only going to tell you, which I think is a really good way to use that media coverage because it's content. I mean, I spent time putting together these 5 bullet points. I mean, there's no reason in the world I can't share those with people. So it's another piece of content that you can share. And also a lot of the media people, if you do have a persistent link that you can share, if you can drive up the people who watched their media and see it, they're going to really appreciate that from you as well. Right?
Definitely. I would say just the standard whenever you get a feature, always tweet it out to your followers and thank the journalist that featured you. So just copy them in on Twitter, say thanks, Sarah so and so for featuring me. They really do appreciate it. They'll often retweet it to their followers. It increases the amount of traffic back to you as well.
Yeah, no, I love it. Okay, so Ally, I'm going to actually pull this up because I kept this question for last. What groups do you recommend we join to build connections? So like what's next, I guess is the question, right?
That is a good question. In terms of
I don't know.
In terms of connecting with journalists or
I think so. Or I guess, Ally, you might have to, if you're still here, you might have to like give us a little bit more context. But I think the question is, because we talked about we're in part of these groups. I think people heard us say that we're part of these groups that we're in. Those are kind of harder. Some of those groups are harder to get in because you have to have certain connections or you have to be in a paid course or whatever. But what would you recommend as far as like, I think having those journalists that you're following and you put them in a list on Twitter, that could really, really help you. And as you start getting deeper and deeper into this, you'll hear of groups. You can like join groups of people that, I don't know. Are you still giving your course? Talk about that maybe.
So I would say, I don't have my course I'm not running my course at the moment, but I would say join groups of relevant people in your industry because a lot of the time, if a journalist is looking for a specific case study, they'll pop into the group and say, I'm looking for a business expert to comment on so-and-so. So journalists do actually scour quite a few of the Facebook groups. They'll pop in and they'll ask for an expert, and that's a really good way to get coverage as well.
Right. And then also we talked about Haro, like that's just like keeping on top of it. And Journo Request, which is cool, which is a hashtag, which we put earlier on if you weren't here. So Journo Request would be good. Like just scan that all the time. Like, have it on your TweetDeck, as some people said here. Like if you have TweetDeck open and you put it in, journalists like Twitter, guys. They like it a lot. And they also, some of them are really big on Instagram at this point too. So you've got Instagram and Twitter are kind of their favorite hangouts. The more young, modern journos are on Instagram. I heard some of the, main people say the first thing I do is go check out their Instagram. And I was like, I gotta go fix that. Anyway, but it just depends on what it is. But Haro is really good. Help a reporter out so that you can keep up with it'll actually send you an email in your industry of journalists looking for specific things. That's hard to get on because there's like just so many people on it. So lots of people jump on it immediately. I don't know about Journo Request, how hard that is to get in.
Journo Request is not that hard at all, actually. It's a really an underused tool. But because it's quite underused, it actually increases your likelihood of getting coverage. And I would say because it's quite underused, a lot of international journalists are starting to use it because they know that if they use Haro, they'll probably get like 1 million responses.
Yeah, they will. And that's the thing about Haro. That's a little bit rough. So yours really has to stand out. You have to get those angles straightened out. Twitter is a great place to connect with journalists. That's where they are in social. Absolutely it is. And again, I was a little surprised, Christy, but the other day I was talking to a pretty like a high-end CNN, let's just say, person who, anyway, she was like, yeah, we go and look on Instagram. I was like, oh God. Another thing to do. No, I mean, I have Instagram, but I'm just saying, how just being much more clear that's also being looked at.
Yeah.
It's kind of a newer thing. Anyway, I'm I'm going to let this go because we have been talking and I've kept you for over the hour. Sorry.
It's gone really quick. I've loved it. Thank
I
you for
know.
having me.
It's a lovely thing. Did I miss anything? I wasn't even using my outline today. I just had this conversation. Hattie, it's so fun to talk to you.
Oh, you too.
I do. I love it. So thank you so much for taking time out. Could you guys say thanks? Give her some love in the comments. Say thank you so much, Hattie, for coming all the way from London to speak to us. We love it. Yeah, say thanks. Cool.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.